Hey everyone, it's Nightharrow here, and today I have a noob's guide to spreading freedom and democracy throughout the galaxy. For real though, this guide is designed specifically for those who maybe just got the game, who are still very new. I just want to go through, hopefully make you a little bit more comfortable with the game. There's going to be three parts to this video, guys. The first part is going to be kind of like getting into the game. How do you play it? Well, getting used to it, what I recommend, that kind of stuff. The second portion will be how to get better at the game, things you can focus on, some tips and tricks. And then the last part of the game will be how the game can improve. There's like 4 different kinds of currency. What weapons do you want to unlock? And again, giving you a kind of a basic loadout. So just feel free to skip around if there's a part you're more interested in. So first thing is, you load it in the game, you had the fun little freedom and democracy advert, and then you had the tutorial. Hopefully you paid attention during the tutorial, or if you're like me, you forgot as soon as you got there, you should just kind of click in and doing other things. But once you've actually loaded into the game, what I would personally recommend you do is just go play, go have fun. Helldivers is just so much fun. I'm sure you've seen plenty of clips if you're watching this one. Just go play. So you just walk in, there's a 3D strategic display. You can choose there whenever you click on it, activate it. You can either choose to quickly join someone else's mission if you're more comfortable, if you don't mind if people are potentially a little toxic, if you're super fresh or whatever, just queue in. I have had many more good experiences with people that were super nice, that were helpful, that explained things than I have had bad experiences, okay? But that does require oftentimes you be willing and able to talk to people. So that's also, if you don't want to talk to anybody, if you're nervous, you have social anxiety, then probably the best thing to do is just to open that strategic menu, make sure you're on the easiest difficulty, which you will be whenever you first start, and then find some place you want to go. If you want to go to kill bugs, you want to go to the right. If you want to go kill machines, you want to go to the left. And I'm sure more things will be added in the future. It doesn't really matter which one you pick. Just pick one of them. You'll have to choose your landing location. Just pick some place, preferably not in danger, and then go ahead and head to your hell pod, which should be right in front of you to the left or right from the strategic table view. And then just load in. You'll have some options that will fill out later, but just load in and just head down to the planet. Now, as soon as you land on the planet, first thing I recommend you do is stealth, crouch. So it's C on PC. I'm sure it's something reasonable on whatever console you might be playing on, but just stealth. Generally speaking, even if you're kind of near some mobs on the lowest difficulties, they won't aggro on you if you just immediately stealth. Don't call in stratagems if you've seen people doing that. That's the very common thing to do. Don't do that. You're brand new. You're just learning. What you're going to do is just take a moment once you've stealthed and then just kind of familiarize yourself with the controls, okay? In a setting where you might actually have to fight something. If there are mobs close and you do want to kill a few, go ahead and do that. But as soon as you've cleared out the first handful, again, crouch and then kind of work through the controls and make sure you know what everything does, okay? So the whole goal here is just to familiarize yourself with the controls, okay? So things you want to know how to do. We just talked about crouch. You want to know how to pull up your map and realize that when you pull up your map, you can't do other things like shoot and whatever. So you do need to put away your map. Get used to that. Pull it up, put it down. That's something that's a little bit different than a lot of other games. You want to know how to dive for cover. That'll help you reduce your damage taken. And there's definitely situations where you need to dive out of the way, dive for cover, and then getting up from that. Sprinting will get you up for that. If you hit the sprint key, you'll stand back up, and just getting used to diving, standing back up, diving, standing back up. Also crouching. Whenever you crouch, it braces your weapon, and so your recoil is less. This is true to real life. If you're prone, it's even better. So just get used to that. Crouch, uncrouch, depending on what kind of weapon you're using. Just familiarize yourself with the controls. You also have aim, and there's multiple different types of aim. You have the third-person aim, and then a first-person aim. Whichever one you prefer, just stick with that. We'll talk about how to change the way it works in just a second. And then, obviously shooting, hopefully you kind of figured that out if you got through the training tutorial. Spacebar will help you climb over things, move around in the world. There's no jumping, but you get used to moving over rocks or fences or what have you. Move around the world before you engage, before you start aggroing mobs and all that kind of good stuff. Now, once you've gotten used to all those, write down those commands, the ones you want, on a sticky note and stick them beside your computer, because you will forget. There's going to be a lot. You just started the game. And you can write down, the best part about writing it down is you can call stuff whatever you want if there's a way to remember it, Like, oh shit means dive for cover, right? Whatever helps you out to make sure you remember what the buttons do. Also, healing, stemming. So it's V on PC, but make sure you know how to stem, how to heal yourself. It's very important. Just get used to all those controls, and then you should be good to go. Once that's happened, go ahead and move out and engage a few mobs. And then after that, you're just going to move around and figure out how to do this first mission, okay? You've got tooltips on your right that'll kind of explain to you what you need to do. You can pull up your map, look around, you can zoom out of your map to make sure you can see what you need to see, and then just head in that direction and try to figure it out. As you go around, you'll find ammo, you'll find supply depots, you'll find other things that, you know, you'll need to interact with. There are side missions in pretty much every main mission. There are other things you can do along the way, and there are mini games with those. On the lower difficulties, they'll typically be very simple. You'll find samples, which you probably won't even know what they are, but you'll find stuff you can pick up. You might find weapons. And then you can also call in stratagems if you have any unlocked and kind of get used to that. And with that in mind, changing your controls. Now is the time, right? When you're first, you know, before you've moved out and all that kind of stuff, you want to go ahead and hit the escape key and you can change several things. So one of them is having the game remember when you're choosing first person or third person. For example, if you choose like a more sniper type rifle, I personally want that to be in first person shooter mode. And that's really what you need. The third person shooter mode on the sniper doesn't really do anything like that. It's called a marksman rifle, not a sniper rifle, but it's the same concept. And so, you know, you can toggle to have the game remember per weapon, or all of your weapons could be first person if you'd like that, or third person, whatever you prefer. That's one of the things you really want to change. Another thing you really want to change, or at least I personally recommend you change, is that using your arrows, your up, down, left, right to call in your stratagems. You can change this on PC to your number pad if you have one, or you can change it to your D-pad so that you can move and still call in stratagems. This is hugely important. Go ahead and just change that setting now. You'll want to, trust me on it. That way you can still be running away, moving from point A to point B. You got a bunch of mobs chasing you. You can call in an airstrike, then lob the location beacon so that the airstrike happens in the proper spot without really losing much of a step. It's huge. Also calling in weapons, whatever it happens to be, calling in your allies while you're running. Mobility in Helldivers is really important, and so this will really help you out quite a bit. Now, after that, again, I recommend just running around solo. Go do the different objectives, kind of learn what's going on. It's totally okay if you fail. It's totally okay if you die. Maybe let mobs hit you a little bit and practice stimming. The whole point is just to practice right now, right? You can leave this mission anytime you get bored, so you're just there to learn. If you want to, you can finish out the mission. If you're like, okay, I figured out everything I need to, let me go ahead and get out of this, you can get out of it fairly quickly. You can also look for mobs. If you see a patrol, you can go aggro and intentionally put yourself in bad situations. Maybe you wait, let the mobs hit you. Maybe you run around and gather a bunch of mobs and then see if you can fight them all down. Get used to throwing grenades, all that kind of stuff. Also, pro tip on grenades, you can cook off a grenade. That means when you pull the pin on a grenade and you release and then you hold it, that's called cooking it off, okay? Generally, real life, not a great idea in most situations, but the idea is that you don't want to throw it, it hits something, bounce off, or in IRL, you throw it and you throw it too soon and they grab it and throw it back at you, okay? So that's why you might want to cook off a grenade. But you can't hold it for too long and it will blow up in your hand and kill you. So just keep that in mind. It's totally okay if you die. You got a bunch of extra lives, not a big deal. Just go back at it. Spread freedom and democracy. Now, eventually you'll get to your extraction zone. You'll probably have to do a mini game where you hit up, down, left, right, A, B, start, select, and that'll unlock and it'll send down a ship. Whenever that happens, it typically alerts everything in the area that, hey, you're extracting and stuff will start coming. So you want to kind of prepare as best you can, have an idea of where choke points are, where the enemy's coming from, and then when the dropship actually comes to land, don't be standing right underneath it because it will kill you. They will squash you or burn you to death with the jets. And then once it's there, you will see so many people, and I know because I've done it, stand around and keep shooting. They want to kill a few more bugs, a few more robots, whatever. When the dropship gets there, if everybody's at the extraction point, just get on the dropship. Don't stand there. I've been shot by people standing right by the door of the dropship, trying to kill a few extra bugs for no reason. I've died messing around in a mech when the dropship came, and I'm just like, I'm just going to kill a few more things, and then my mech blew up, right? And then you don't get extracted. So once the ship gets there, if everybody's in the area, once someone loads on, there's a timer, so you do want everybody to be close in the area, but just get on the dropship. And you can complete your first mission, and you'll be in a pretty good spot to hopefully maybe group up with some people and go into a little bit more difficult content. Now, speaking of more difficult content, as you complete content on various difficulty levels, you will unlock the next higher difficulty. So that's how you get harder and harder stuff. So if you find yourself at difficulty 2 or 3 and you're like, this is kind of boring, I'm not being challenged, make sure that you are sliding up in difficulty and you're continually doing that so that you don't get too bored. And then obviously if you unlock a higher difficulty and it's too much, just drop back down. Not really a big deal. Now, let's go ahead and move on and talk about getting good. I'm just going to give you some generic tips that will help you get better at the game. So one of the first things I would recommend, and this is actually true in every game that you might play, is focus on one thing. For Helldivers, maybe it's learning a new weapon, okay? Maybe it's like, you know what? I'm just going to work on using my primary. I'm going to get used to using my primary and then go from there. Maybe you want to get used to, so swapping to your secondary weapon is a lot quicker than reloading your primary weapon. So maybe you want to put yourself in kind of a bad situation, unload with your primary, and then get used to swapping to your secondary and then finishing off the mobs and then moving away as you reload both of them. That's one idea. Just using a new weapon type. I recommend personally picking a weapon or a stratagem or something like that, and then just trying to use it as much as you can and focus on like, how does it work against this mob? What about some other mob? How is the reload time on it? What is the pattern of the various airstrikes you're calling in? How does this weapon feel? For example, with the machine gun, standing and shooting and moving with a machine gun causes it to aim and shoot off everywhere. So that's something you might get used to. You know what? Whenever I'm shooting with a machine gun, I stop and I crouch for a second. I fire, then I get up and move. And if you just focus on using one weapon or one stratagem at a time and really focus, you can do other stuff during a mission, but focus on that one thing. It'll really help you improve. And it'll also give you a really good feel for what it's like. Sure, you can look up a guide and be like, oh, this is the best loadout or whatever. But again, even if you do that, focus on, okay, you got 3 things that are part of this guide, focus on one of them, and that'll really help you improve. I know it seems simple. I know it seems trivial, but it actually will help you quite a bit. Another thing with aiming, you'll notice that when you're in third person, you'll have a dot in the middle of your screen and you can move, and then you'll see this smaller circle that will kind of track with that dot. That's actually where your weapon is aiming. And you'll notice this more with like heavier and slower weapons, particularly if you're on a mech, that you move and it takes a while for you to swing over. It's telling you where you want to aim, but it's taking a while for the aim to actually get there. So you can use that to actually be more accurate by aiming down or to the left or to the right of where you actually want to be hitting, because you see that where it's actually tracking it is in a different spot than the aim mark on your screen. Other things you can do is focus on individual mobs. If you're fighting one particular kind of mob, try to focus on whenever I'm hitting this one, where's the weak spot on it? And you can kind of learn, sure, you can look up guides, but you can learn it for yourself just by paying attention. Okay, this one kind of mob, I'm going to figure out how to deal with them. And if you're going into mission solo, which again, we've already kind of shown it's very easy to do, you can go into a mission solo, look for a particular kind of mob, maybe kill the other ones that are around it if it's in a group, and just kind of see, how does this mob behave? How does it react? Let yourself die. See how long you can stay alive without fighting back, and do that kind of thing. How does it deal with grenades? Are they particularly effective against these mobs? And you'll learn a lot that way. And when you're doing that, you'll also notice that there might be this shield icon with kind of a ricochet looking thing. That's telling you that your weapon isn't penetrating enough. You can't do enough damage with that weapon to penetrate the armor. So you either need to shoot in a different location or use a higher caliber or a more penetrating weapon. When you first start out, you're not really going to have that. The machine gun is probably the best thing you have, but you're not going to have much else. So you're really going to have to look for those weak points. Later on, you can get weapons that can let you kind of forego some of those weak points and get extra penetration, and so it's less of a problem. But still really good to learn how to be most effective against individual mobs. Another thing you can focus on is the individual mini games. If you're going, even if you're with a group, be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to try to do all the mini games. I'm not really worried. Let them kill bugs or whatever. When I first started out, I was like, you know what? I don't know how these mini games work. I don't know what I need to do, but I do know how to shoot things. So I'm just going to go shoot things. And, and that's what I did a lot of times. And then it's like, okay, after a while, all right, I know how to shoot things pretty well. I kind of know how the game works. I know when mobs are coming, when they're not coming. Let me go try to figure out this mini game while my team holds everything else down. And that's a good way to kind of learn. Again, just pick one thing and focus on that one thing, and that'll be a great way to improve. And then another thing you can do is talk to people in comms. I had plenty of groups where I was like, hey, I'm new. and they can tell because you're level, right? But like, I don't know how this works. Hey, where are we going? I'm not sure where to go. You tell me where to go, I'll go there, you know? Like, hey, tell me if I'm doing something wrong. And I had several people that kind of were very nice, took me under the wing, sometimes even with another friend, and they're like, oh yeah, and they explain things to you. And it's a really fun way to learn about the game while actually playing and potentially make some friends along the way, which is really fun. It seems like right now you can't make friends in game. It doesn't seem to be working. I think they know it's a broken feature. It was on their list of known issues. Unfortunately, so you can't make, permanent friends that way, but you can at least make some friends. And then the last way, and this is again another thing that's true of all games. If you really want to get good, you want to record yourself. Record yourself during play. This is something that's a little bit more advanced when you're first learning the game. You don't need to do this probably, but once you get a little bit better, if you're an Xbox or PC, it is integrated into Windows that it can record. I think on PC it's like Windows Shift R or something like that. It's built into the game, and it won't take up too many resources. But just record your gameplay and then watch it back, and you'll watch it and you'll be like, what am I doing here? Oh, I died. I didn't know why, but I'm just standing here and not healing myself for a long time. Or, oh, I didn't see that mob coming up. I need to swivel around. That's one thing you'll notice in Helldivers. Man, your head's really got to be on a swivel because you never know where the mobs are coming from. So, so all that stuff will go in. And if you watch like any game you play, I learned this from StarCraft way back in the day, but watching your own gameplay will show you what you're doing wrong, what's leading to your death, and what's causing problems. All right, now let's go ahead and move on and talk about all these different ways of upgrading all of your gear and all of the different kinds of currency. So there are 4 kinds of currency in Helldivers, and they're all earned kind of in different ways, but honestly, if you just play the game, for the most part, you'll gain all of them. One of them is a premium currency, which is game companies speak for purchasable currency that you can, paying to get things in game. So we'll start off here. We won't talk about that right now, but requisition slips. So these have an R and it's kind of like a negative, I don't know, like a yellow or green background. I'm colorblind, but it's one of those colors. It's bright. So requisition slips are quote unquote ship upgrades. Okay. I was very confused what that meant at first, but basically it means anything that could come from your ship. So the new mechs, which don't unlock until like level 25 or something like that. Really fun, by the way. Those come from your ship. Anything that comes down in a hell pod that's being sent down to you, all that kind of stuff comes from your ship. There's also like orbital bombardment. There's airstrikes. All of that stuff is considered to be like ship upgrades, right? It's coming from your ship. So that's what you use these requisition slips for. And when you first start the game, this is probably the most important kind of currency that you can get, because you want to be able to unlock like a machine gun, which is the first thing I would unlock with your requisition slips, just so that you have a secondary weapon that can have a little bit extra penetration. And then after that, I recommend the recoilless rifle, but we'll talk about loadouts in a second as being like the second thing I think you should really unlock besides airstrikes and what have you. So that's how you spend these requisition slips. And again, when you load in, you come in and it'll be on your left. That's where you open up the menu to purchase various things through the requisition menu. Next up, and I think probably the most important currency for like mid-game is probably going to be the various medals you can get. You get those primarily, there's a couple ways of getting them. Just by completing missions, you'll get a few, but there are daily rewards where it's like, hey, kill X amount of bugs or use this thing Y amount of times. And you'll get quite a few that way. There are also weekly objectives. So typically an objective is like a series of missions like, hey, we're trying to drive the Terminids back by doing X, Y, and Z. So go to these 3 locations and help us do that thing. Or something similar with the automatons. But those daily rewards and weekly rewards give you a lot of these medals. And honestly, you'll want and you'll need a lot of them. Okay. So definitely do those. And honestly, logging in daily just to do those is definitely worth it. You can get a game in like 20, 30 minutes, at most like an hour. When you're first new, you might not complete it every single day in that time period. You might fail it on a particular mission, but it's pretty easy to do. And I strongly recommend that you do that. And that's kind of like the mid-game, something you want to do. Now, the third thing here is going to be samples. Samples is a little bit more of kind of a late game thing that gives you you get better samples and higher quality of samples, the more higher difficulty you're on. I know you can see that I'm kind of a low level. I have friends that are pretty hardcore gamers, as you might imagine. So some of this is advice from them, but picking up samples, you actually collect these these out in the worlds, and as the difficulty goes up, you'll be able to collect rarer and rarer kinds of samples. And you can check out some of my live streams of us running around doing Helldiver difficulty and trying to collect these samples and stuff like that. But these are used for the ship modules. So basically what this is to modify in kind of a relatively minor way some of the things you already get. So typically reducing cooldown is very common, having an extra use of something, having it be a little bit more effective, but a lot of times it's like 10%. It's not like a whole lot. And then the last thing here is super credits. Super credits are the premium currency. So this is something you can pay money for. I will say I typically hate monetization in games because I hate the way it's done. I think that Helldivers does a great job of it, and I honestly don't have a problem. I haven't had to spend a penny, and I don't think I ever will unless I wanted to. If you want to, yes, there can be a little bit benefit. It kind of, you know, you don't have that much time to play. You can get better upgrades, weapons more quickly. If you don't have time to play that 20 minutes a day, you got like an hour a week you're playing. Totally makes sense. But if you just play the game by getting requisition slips and medals and those other things, you can unlock more super credits via the premium currency and be able to purchase things that way. And at least so far, the cash shop hasn't been anything crazy. Sure, there's some fun stuff in there maybe, but it's not like anything game breaking. And in general, like when you start the game and you go in and play, you can play and do a decent job. Like, yeah, there are better weapons and there's some interesting stuff that comes through. But it's not like you got to go grind out to get some better weapon or that you need to pay a bunch of money to be, you know, comparable. You can easily in game, as you're gaining experience, unlock everything you need to be able to play the game. And you know, with that, I think that's it. I think that's everything I got today. So hopefully this was helpful. If you guys have questions about other things, I need ideas for what videos I should make next. I love making guides. I love making beginner guides. So if there's something that either you have a question about, you had a question about now, but you're past it, but hey, I wish someone would have had a guide about X, Y, or Z, or maybe something that a friend has a question about, drop in the comments below. Let me know. I'd love to cover it. Give me some ideas. But anyways, that's it for today. We'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Yes, took down the ship and promptly died. Oh no, I'm still alive.